You wondering who will be diving into the stuffing less than 2 times? Or who will be eating more than 3 pieces of pie on Thanksgiving? Well, then you got to play the Pick 6 game from DraftKings. Your shot to turn a little cash into a lot. It's super simple to get started. First, download the DraftKings Pick 6 app, now available in Texas, California, and more. Then select between 2 or more players and choose if they'll have more or less than a certain stats, like yards or touchdowns, sacks, whatever. You choose if they're going to have more or less. And for the first time, Pick 6 players, check this out. New customers play $5. You get $50 in Pick 6 credits. Download the DraftKings Pick 6 app now and use the code BALLERS. That's the code BALLERS for new customers to play $5, get $50 in Pick 6 credits. Only on DraftKings Pick 6. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org in Connecticut. Must be 18 plus. Age and eligibility restrictions vary by jurisdiction. Pick 6 not available everywhere, including New York and Ontario. Void where prohibited. 1 per new customer. Bonus bets awarded as non-withdrawable Pick 6 credits that expire in 30 days. Limited time offers. See terms at pick6.draftkings.com/promos.
This episode is brought to you by Instagram. Though we can't all agree on our picks, we can all agree that we want social media to be a safe place for teens. So it's good to hear about Instagram teen accounts, which provide automatic safety settings for teens built with parents' top concerns in mind. Things like making their teens' profiles private by default, having automatic contact limits so they can only be messaged by people they are connected to, and content restrictions that place them in the most restrictive setting, limiting sensitive content they see in places like Explore and Reels. And all of these settings are built in, so no extra work for parents. Instagram is automatically placing teens into teen accounts, and teens under 16 will need a parent's permission to change any of these settings to be less strict. Basically, Instagram teen accounts will limit who can contact teens and the content they see and help ensure teens' time on the app is well spent. And that's something everyone can agree on.
The DFS Studio is brought to you by DraftKings. Welcome to the Fantasy Footballers DFS and Betting Podcast with your hosts, Kyle Borganoni and Matthew Betz.
Welcome in. It's Friday, December 6th here on the Fantasy Footballers DFS and Betting Podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Borganoni, and I am joined, as always, by Matthew. He's just a crying Papa Betz.
I am, man. I'm soft these days during the holiday season. I would still say as a new dad. I mean, it's been a long 2 years. Let me tell you what, brother. But new again, with our third baby girl born in July. So it's one of those situations where, you realize all this stuff is happening. But then there's certain moments where it just hits you and you're like, we're in it. Like, these are the days that I'm going to miss in, 7-8 years. Right now, there are moments where I really do not enjoy the grind, but there are going to be times where I miss it. And so I was telling you before the show, I don't know if anybody has seen the Apple AirPods commercial that's out there.
If you just want to ruin your day in the best way possible, do it. Just
goodness.
I like the feeling of feeling alive and crying my eyes out. So yeah. I like that feeling.
Yeah, if you missed it, it's a dad with AirPods, and he has hearing loss. The AirPods help him hear his daughter play guitar, and he's having all these flashbacks of all these moments of her as a kid. My wife were watching a show the other night that comes on, and I'm just like tearing up a little bit on the couch. And now I'm in like full-blown dad Christmas mode where it's like, whatever it is, just buy it. Like, I don't even care. Just buy it. We're doing all the things. We're taking the kids to see, Santa. We're doing like breakfast with Santa. We're doing a reading with Mrs. Claus. We're taking the kids to a light show. I'm just full on dad mode for the holidays. So I'm going to need to win some money this week, Kyle, because I have already written the checks for these Christmas purchases. So I need your help today.
And this is about your core memories because your kids won't remember any of this.
No, not at a single moment.
I'm okay with that. And I I'm totally cool with that. My kids are a little bit older than Betz, but you get to that point. It's our old friend Andrew Bernard who told us, like, I wish we were in the good old days. I wish I knew I was in them. And you know what? These are them. And for a lot of people, the good old days is just hanging around, playing some DFS, surviving another week, cashing, hanging with the crew in Discord. These are the good times. These are the times in 2024 when they look back on history. Let me just say this, okay? And I have my finger in the air. I know you can't on the podcast, but my finger's in the air. I'm declaring.
I can't confirm that is happening.
Scholars will look back. Archaeological finds will say, hey, what were they doing in the 2020s? And they'll say, they were looking for punt tight ends. They were looking for cheap plays in cash. There was a podcast called Borg Betz, and they never quite got sponsored by Chili's.
Never say never. Never say never, Kyle. I am determined. You know, every year at the start, you're a big goals guy, aren't you? Like, write down goals for the year and stuff.
Oh, I'm taking my off-site where I just go off by myself for a day, doing that in a week or so.
I love it. I'll tell you what, the top of my list this year, 2025, coming up, get Chili's to sponsor this podcast. That's my only goal for the year. That's the number one and the last one, and it will happen.
So, his wife left him, but he got sponsored by Chili's, and it was not a bad start to the year. But yes, we are glad you're with us. I like this slate. I like Week 14, and I think the games that we're going to talk about here are going to be interesting. We're going to highlight at least 4 games. One of them, Betz and I might fight over because we both don't like the teams. Like, we hate them, but we need to talk about them. And then we'll get to our pick 6, which has also been hot. But if you want all of our picks, go to dfspass.com. I don't know if you know this, Betz, but recently I've kind of been the prop daddy for the group. I've been the guy taking the stuff, you know, as you're listening to this is coming out on Friday. We took some for Thursday night, and it was me. It was your boy Borg telling you guys to take an over.
Yeah, you came out of the gates swinging this week. You know, normally Kyle's like, I don't know, I don't want to speak for you, but normally your process is you're very selective. You like to do a lot of the research first, you know, get everything ready for the show docs, have your head around the slate, and then we talk about props. Whereas me, like, I kind of go along each game and then like, oh, I like this angle. You know, this team's been trending here in the pass game or run game. Here's the matchups. And I kind of like fire as we go. But for you, it was the opposite this week. On like Tuesday, Wednesday, Kyle's sending me 2, 3, 4 props a day. I'm like, brother, fire away. So yes, there are a bunch waiting for you in Discord and in the article tracker on the site. People always ask us, like, what's your rationale? Why are you taking this? Every pick that we ever take has an analysis written up for it as well. So yes, let's just say as of this Friday, let's hope we went 2-0 last night.
Yep. No, that's good. DFSpass.com. We like you guys enough to keep giving you content. We'll be giving it to you all throughout the rest of the season and through the fantasy playoffs. It's going to be awesome. We're excited to still hang out with you. I did want to read one of these. You know, usually I hit the money drop. Actually, you know what? I'm going to hit the money drop. Because it's Christmas time, and I thought this would be a good one to hit at the top of the show. This one's from Mitch M527. There were 526 others, and so he had to jump on board and get the right handle. But Mitch wrote in on Discord. He said, I just pulled out money from several of the books to completely cover Christmas for the kids. Thanks, Borg Betz, for the years of entertainment, teaching everyone the right way to do things, and of course, this Christmas hot streak. We all greatly appreciate everything you do. I mean, that is pretty great. Paying for Christmas, teaching everyone the right way to do it, and just making sure that people can look at their families later on this month with joy. So yeah, anyway, it's fun to be able to do that. I love those types of stories for people. We don't really need to give testimonials every single time, but it's more like to join in with you guys and say we're excited when you guys have wins. So anyway, great stuff, Mitch.
Straight cash, homie.
All right, we're going to give our cash thoughts. We're recording on a Thursday. Some of this will change. The big piece of news that we still do not know, we got the news in, that Breece Hall doesn't want to be at practice. In fact, the real news is that the entire Jets team hates themselves and they don't want to be there. But so we kind of have to monitor Braylon Allen. We already have a cheap Isaac Guerendo. I kind of want to start there in the conversation because on Tuesday we're like, Guerendo's the lock. You're going to play him. And I think we would still say Guerendo is a great play. But how are you kind of sorting out if we get a 5K Braylon Allen or a 5.2 on FanDuel?
Yeah, if you get both these guys, you can pretty much do whatever you want in cash, because I do think they would both be pretty standout plays as your RB1, RB2, and then from there...
Like play MVS.
Yeah, I mean, that's the third lock, obviously, this week. No. It would be those two guys almost certainly in, and then from there, you're picking between Saquon and Kamara is kind of most likely what I would expect the builds to look like for cash. As it stands, without the Braylon Allen news as of our recording, it kind of feels like you have to pick one of Kamara or Saquon. You can play them both. I've seen some lineups that look okay, but you're really getting thin in some other spots, and it doesn't feel very comfortable. So if Braylon Allen opens up as a play, if Breece Hall does not play, we will have, kind of like unlimited salary for cash games where you could potentially spend up on a Justin Jefferson or someone that's an elite wide receiver. As it stands now, it kind of feels like you're forced into the 5K range at wide receiver, maybe punt at tight end, punt at defense, and kind of go from there with the running back plays being standout. But yeah, we're waiting on the Braylon Allen news. Breece Hall did not practice Wednesday or Thursday as of this recording with a knee issue that was plaguing him last week. Real quick, it is also that time of the year where teams will be cautious with players when they don't need to force them out there. Obviously, the Jets are playing for, I was going to say they're playing for pride. I don't think they have any pride at this point. They don't even care. They're ready for the offseason, as we all are with that team. So I would not be surprised to see him sit. So if that happens, Braylon Allen, Isaac Guerendo, very, very strong plays at their price tags.
I think one of the things I would encourage everyone to do, I try to do this in my process, but this week, like, map out the plays and then say to yourself, like, how popular do I think this player is going to be? So for instance, if you think there's going to be at least one 5K running back in every single cash roster, is going to be at least Guerendo or Allen, or maybe both, then think to yourself, like, okay, Saquon and Kamara, if I'm facing them in a head-to-head, who scares me more? Because they're both awesome plays. Like, I've gone back and forth where, like, Saquon, it's a lot of money to spend up for, and then you see how historically bad the Panthers have been as a rush defense, and then Kamara is just going to get so much work. The Giants have also been a run funnel. So, I don't know, like, I'm flipping a coin between the two. I'm more scared to face Saquon just because, like, he could put up 25 points on me, where Kamara hasn't scored in a while, but I feel like you're going to see one of those running backs along with, Guerendo and Allen, or at least Guerendo. For
sure, yeah. Guerendo's the first guy in, and then I think you are choosing between Saquon and Kamara. With Kamara, it hasn't really worked out in terms of the actual box score production, but the projection always looks strong because they have no weapons, right? Really outside of him. They had Taysom, now they don't even have Taysom. So it's like, how does he not touch the ball 20 times against the Giants who, just let Rico Dowdle do whatever he wanted to do on Thanksgiving? Like, they're giving it up to everybody. They also just lost Dexter Lawrence, their best interior defensive lineman. So I think both guys are incredible plays. I mean, Saquon's rushing line on DraftKings is like 115.5. He's going to score at least one touchdown, almost certainly, right? It's just like, it's $1,000 difference. And as it stands as of our recording, I kind of think you need the 1,000. It's really thin if you play Barkley. So that's kind of my leanest to save with Kamara, but it depends on what we get opening up throughout the weekend. So just make sure you're keeping in touch with best plays. We'll have you covered there. But that's my early stance in the week, is to go with the savings.
Yeah, I think if I'm just looking at this from points per dollar, opportunities, I mean, Kamara's at 23 plus a game. He's awesome. Did you see his rushing receiving line? 124.5.
Ooh, that's nice.
I know. So, yeah, both of those guys are just awesome plays. If you want to play them both and play Guerendo, do it. Like, that's totally fine. Just think of Kamara as you're deciding between Kamara and Justin Jefferson. I wish I could play Saquon, Kamara, and Jefferson. I just don't think it'll work out that way this week. So we started off with running backs, and then on FanDuel, it's pretty much the same dudes, but make sure you check our best plays. Let's go back to quarterback here. There's not a lot of great plays this week. Like, I think DraftKings did a pretty good job of forcing us to make a decision. In the 6K range, we talked about Darnold on Tuesday's podcast. I like Baker. I think he's a solid play at 6.4. I wouldn't say great, but he's solid at his price point. I think Darnold's probably where we agree the most, and we'll talk about that game in a second. Can I just throw out there, and you could tell me if this is a Mike Glennon moment, but would you just think about AOC for 4,800? Just go down the road.
I have thought about it.
This is better than Glennon.
I get an uneasy feeling on my tum-tum, Kyle. I'm a little worried about this one, but the matchup is right. Both Myers and Bowers are projecting super strong.
Dude, I'm telling you, Myers is a great play this week.
You've been on him all year. I don't know what's taking me so long. Yeah, welcome to the party, pal. Both guys are projecting super well. It's obviously a very good matchup. Teams are choosing to throw on the Bucks. The Raiders are quietly like top 10 team in pass rate over expectation over the last month. Now, part of that was with Gardner, but still, they can't run the ball. The run game is broken. So, yeah, I think AOC makes a lot of sense, whether it's for cash if you have the stones to do that, or the nice thing about stacking him is it's just so clear where the ball goes that you know where the double stacks are, that I do think that is in play. I mentioned on the Tuesday show, my best team last week was a Bryce Young stack with a double bring back in terms of Bucky and Mike Evans. I mean, I could see a very similar situation. Stack up AOC, tack on Bowers, bring it back with Evans, something like that. So I don't know if I'm there in cash, maybe, but I get it. The salary savings goes a very long way on this slate. So I think that is in play. I know we talked Tuesday. Have you come around at all to Will Levis at 5K taking on the Jaguars? Because I have bad news for you, Kyle. He projects decently well.
5K, it's... Okay, so what if I told you that Will Levis has scored more than 16.5 fantasy points once this entire season? Like, you're really asking for him to have a long touchdown, but he hasn't had the volume, and this game doesn't project to have much volume at all. It's at 39.5. I like Pollard a lot in this game. I think Pollard you can throw in your cash pool and tournament pool as well. I just feel like with Will Levis, he doesn't run as much as you think, and I feel like this game just projects to just be a plotter. Where with AOC, I feel like I can get more passing volume, and I just like that a little bit more. Now the Jaguars are terrible, but yeah. So Levis is like he could crack the top 5 of our best plays as like points per dollar. I don't think you have to do it in cash this week because you have all the other savings at running back. But AOC is more fun to play for me.
Yeah, you mentioned you have all the other savings. I mean, I was looking at teams and I was like, I guess this looks okay. If you put in Darnold, assuming Breece Hall plays. If Breece Hall does not play, then play Darnold. But right now, like, it's tough, man. Once again, DraftKings every single week gives us no good wide receiver plays below 4,500. So it's tight this week. So that's why that's why we're even talking about Will Levis and Aiden O'Connell. But yeah, we'll keep you guys updated in best plays. But I agree, if I have all the money, Darnold to me is my preferred play.
Yeah, right now I have a DM going back and forth with Jason, who's building his lineup for Friday's fantasy face-off, and he's like, "Hey, so who's the good plays under 4,500?" And Betz and I are like,
they don't exist.
I don't know who they are. Like I really don't. So I think this week you're going to see 3 running backs or 2 tight ends. We'll talk about that. Maybe 2 tight ends. I mean, that's your area of specialty.
That's my bread and butter, baby. I love it. Nothing makes you feel more alive than, sweating 2 tight end lineups at 6:30 on a Sunday evening. It's great. It's the best.
Yeah, if we had our DFS school, your subject you would teach is 2 tight ends. Professor Betz.
I still haven't recovered from last week. I hate myself.
Now, I'll teach a punt tight end course if we need that. I would totally teach that class. I mean, Kate Otten would be somebody that we can't talk about anymore. He's not a punt tight end, but he would be in the history books. Somebody we've talked about for a long time. All right, wide receiver, you mentioned it. There's no cheap dudes. And so when you think about how people are going to construct their roster for cash, it's a bunch of 5K dudes. Like it's probably, Jacoby Myers, who's going to be in our top 5 best plays. It's just, he looks awesome in terms of points per dollar in the matchup. Jerry Jeudy's going to show up, especially on FanDuel at 6.1 as like a really good play based on what he's doing right now. It's 110 yards per game with James Winston. So Judy's fine. Juwan Jennings at 5.2. The return of Juwan Jennings, I'm cool with that. Can you play Garendo and him in the same lineup?
I think so. They're both cheap enough. They're the same price, right? On DraftKings, 5,200? No, 5,400 for Garendo. But 5,200 for Jennings is cheap, man. And, the matchup for Garendo is incredible against the Bears' rush defense. Their pass defense, whenever people talk about the Bears, it's always like, oh, their pass defense is better than their run defense. And, that's mostly true. But, recently, since week 8, they're 22nd EPA per dropback. This is not the Bears secondary you thought it was early in the year. So I still think Juwan Jennings is a very good play. You're the Juwan Jennings whisperer, so I'll let you chime in here. But his target shares over the last 4 weeks, 31, 36%, 21%, 28%. It's hard to pass that up at this price tag.
I mean, his yards per out run's better than Justin Jefferson. So, AKA, he's better than Justin Jefferson.
Obviously.
Yeah. I mean, he's the first read, and it feels weird, but Debo is one of those plays that every single week he's going to project fine, and you go, well, Jennings is cheaper, and I'm just going to go that direction. So Jennings is great at 5.2. It's a price thing. The Atlanta guys, I'm biased, but Drake London at 6.4 is a great play, and I think Darnell Mooney is in play too at 5.5. You have to throw in the Vikings, and we'll talk about that game in a second. But do you like the Atlanta guys?
Yeah, we talked Tuesday, and this was a little bit more of a quick reaction from what happened on Sunday, where everybody saw Kirk fall on his face, and of course it feels terrible. Now you have a few days to kind of like digest, relax a minute, and kind of like reconsider. I still am worried about the game for tournaments of how it could go, and we'll talk about that. But just when you look at these guys, like Kyle Pitts is playing like 40% of the snaps. Like he's not even involved as a pass catcher, so you pretty much know where the ball is going. Will it be the most efficient? I don't think so. Will the volume be there? I think almost certainly in a potential negative game script. So in a dome, I do like Drake London and Darnell Mooney quite a bit. I prefer London. Obviously, you're paying more for it, but if I was going to pick one, I would pick London.
Did you see that pro move in the middle of your speech?
I did, and I almost... I was going to say I spit out my coffee, but I'm not drinking coffee. I almost, I was just surprised, Kyle. What's going on over there? You all right?
My inhaler, which... guys, I've never...
Mid-show, Kyle's just shaking it up on the side, and all of a sudden I see him lean away from the microphone, and he just takes a hit. I'm like, Kyle, are you all right, man?
Guys, I don't know what it is. You can blame COVID or whatever. I think I blame college. This is my deep theory that Emma makes fun of me for. But like, I'm pretty sure like some of the places, the houses that I had in college, like had mold or something. It's college,
Asbestos,
and so I think
it's fine.
Oh yeah. I breathed in everything that was bad for me from those places. And yet I think my lungs, I've done it, it's just, I don't smoke. I don't know what it is. And so I get short of breath sometimes when I talk for a living. And so I needed it, Betz. I needed it real bad.
I've never seen somebody use their inhaler on a podcast.
Fun fact, Mike has his sitting next to him.
But you just so casually whip that thing out and start shaking it.
That's why we don't have video, people, just to protect for things like that. So thank you for bearing with me. I think you're just going to see 3 or 4 5K guys. I think people are going to spin down. No one's going to get crazy out of hand. Like, I don't know. Who do you think is going to be the most popular of this group? Like Jacoby?
Probably Jacoby Myers.
Okay. Do you see people spending up for Jefferson? Or is it kind of a back and forth between Saquon, Kamara, Jefferson? You might only end up with one.
Yeah, I think Jefferson, if you have the money, he's an unbelievable play. The problem is that relative to how the pricing works out, the top tier running back plays are stronger than the, top tier options at wide receiver outside of Jefferson. So I think what you're going to see is most people spending up at running back, spending down at wide receiver. And I think for cash, that's probably right on this slate, but it does kind of present a nice opportunity. Like in tournaments, you already know what the cash teams are going to look like. It's all the 5K guys. It's one expensive running back, maybe 2, and then kind of like fill it out from there. You could flip the build in tournaments, spend down a little bit at running back and spend up at wide receiver and get different. So you already know basically what our opponents are going to do in tournaments. It just kind of gives you a spot to get some leverage.
I did want to give some love to Mike Evans at 7.2. I think he's going to project super strong, 38% targets per outrun since he's returned these last 2 weeks. And it's a great matchup against the Raiders. So I think Mike Evans is in the mix. Let's say you can't get all the way up to Jefferson. You need to save $600, and it allows you to still have Kamara, Saquon. I think Evans is a fine play as well. But right now, we're not recommending anybody. Like I started going down the list, like Elijah Moore, 4,800. Even that's not cheap enough for me.
Yeah, I think he's okay. I don't love it, but when you think about Elijah Moore, the conversation was like, okay, great, he's going to get you 8 targets, but they're all 3 yards away from the line of scrimmage. Jameis Winston for president, man. This dude is unbelievable. Since Jameis took over, his ADOT is 12 yards. Elijah Moore, 12-yard ADOT with Jameis Winston. Almost unheard of in the Elijah Moore, experience. But yeah, 4,800, he's okay. I think if he's like your last piece in, I think it's fine. He has seen 9.5 targets per game since Jameis Winston took over. If you were going to get 10 targets without Cedric Tillman, who missed practice again on Thursday with a concussion, I do think that's viable. So yeah, keep him in your player pool and just kind of see what works for your builds this week.
There's some 3K guys if you really wanted to get weird, but I'm not even going to mention them on the podcast because I just can't confidently tell anyone this is who the guys are. At tight end, I do think you're going to see people spend up this week. There's not a lot of great options where we've been in that 4K range. Like last week, it was like, did you want Henry or Ertz or Hawkinson? I think Hawkinson's fine this week at 4.3, but like McBride and Bowers at 6.1 and 6.5 are tempting. So are you thinking that way at all?
Well, let me tell you about some 2 tight end teams, Kyle, because if you would like to play 2 tight ends this week, in all seriousness, I do think it's viable if one of those tight ends is Brock Bowers, because he's a wide receiver. I mean, the dude is leading the NFL, not tight ends, just all pass catchers in catches this year. And now he gets the Bucks, right? So at 6,500, if you're telling me that's the wide receiver, again. He leads the NFL in catches.
I don't know if that's true.
I just look it up. It's true. Anyway, while Kyle vets that, he
holy crap
has seen 16, 10, and 14 targets over the last 3 weeks. So if you think of him as just like a pass catcher, a wide receiver, and you put him in your flex,
84 receptions.
That is unbelievable. If you put him in your flex or your tight end spot, and you also want to spend down on like Juwan Jennings as your punt, that to me is viable this week. So I have looked at teams that look pretty good with that in there. To me, it's just, again, a comparison of how you want to build. Do you want to just punt it off at tight end with like Juwan Johnson and spend up elsewhere? That's viable. 2 tight ends, I do think is viable. So even though I hated myself last week for doing it, I am strongly considering it based off what happens with the Breece Hall injury.
And this time you're actually going to invest in good tight ends.
Who did I play last week? Oh, Evan Ingram. Yeah.
And Taysom. Taysom was fine. Evan Ingram, not so much.
I'll never recover.
Yeah. Juwan Johnson is the punt dude right now at 3.4. Sure. You could do it if you want to. I've seen some love for Grant Calcaterra. He's a better play on FanDuel where he's a lot cheaper. Will Disley is also in play because you get the Sunday night game on FanDuel if you want to do that one. But yeah, we'll see how tight end goes. I don't like 2 tight end builds, but I do like Brock Bowers and I like Trey McBride. So I'll see how those teams look and project. At defense, we talked about them, but you can play the Titans at 2.8. You can play the Saints at 2.9. I mean, Drew Lock was sacked 6 times, threw a pick 6, lost a fumble. He's an irresponsible boy. And this is why they have given him the job so that they can secure the number 1 overall pick. But the Saints and the Titans, do you have a preference between those two?
The Saints or the Titans? I mean, they're $100 apart. So if you have the money, I prefer the Saints. I have not seen an updated practice report, but as of earlier in the week, both starting tackles were also not practicing. So yikes. Yeah, I mean, unbelievable experience. Drew Lock on Thanksgiving was a treat. So I prefer the Saints if you have the money. If you need to save, I think the Titans are fine. I also think if you're like if you have a lineup you love and you need $200, I don't think playing the Jags against Will Levis is the worst thing in the world either. Obviously the Jags are terrible, but it's kind of your last piece in, so I think it's fine. So I would say if I ranked it, it would be Saints, Titans, and Jaguars.
Let's take a quick break and we'll be right back.
Hey, it's me, Tyler. Bose open earbuds are stylish. The color, it looks almost like an earring. I feel like it could go with anything. The music I'm making right now feels like a holiday. I want to look like it too. Check out Bose.com for more.
Make this summer count with Harvard Summer School. With Harvard's free college programs, high school students gain confidence and insight into what college is all about, challenge themselves, and discover new friends. There are over 200 courses to choose from, including college credit courses. So it's the ideal way for students to learn something new, but most importantly, have fun. Visit info.summer.harvard.edu/Spotify to learn more.
Stack Attack.
A real pro's pro, they tell me.
Can't coach that.
A podcasting phenom. They saw him in the minor leagues and they said, this guy knows how to press a button, knows how to just move people along. There's somebody's listening. They heard an ad. Maybe they didn't hear an ad. They heard the segment. They're ready.
I just can't stop picturing you with the inhaler.
Okay. We'll be fine. We'll be totally fine.
Do you need to use it when you play sports?
No, that's like I never used an inhaler my
just
entire life.
Just podcasting?
No.
You don't need it for exercise, but you need it to talk. How is that?
I get
accurate?
short of breath.
Kyle,
I don't bring it with. Like
someone.
I played pickleball earlier today. I didn't bring it with me, but that's out of just being lazy. You're a doctor.
I have so many questions.
Yeah, I'm not saying like I'm a pretty quirky dude, so I'm not saying I do things the right way, but I've only gotten this in the last like 2 years. I never had this growing up.
Okay,
I was cool growing up. All right, let's talk about these games. The first one is the Atlanta Falcons at the Minnesota Vikings. You know it as the Kirk Cousins revenge game. That might not be true because at the end of the day, they loved him in Minnesota. He's a great guy. We know where he shops. We know what he's about. And yet at the end of the day, he's also been booty-doo recently. Just terrible, terrible, terrible. So the over-under is at 46. It's a dome game. Both of these teams, you can throw on them. In Minnesota, you kind of have to throw on them. But where do you want to start looking at this game? Because I worry about Kirk against the blitz. I worry about Kirk moving more than like 2 yards out of the pocket. It's you're just hoping for volume on his side.
Yeah, I think it's going to be pretty inefficient, but could he volume his way there in a negative game script? I think it's possible. My fear and like concern about this was going into the slate. You know, sometimes we talk about just from a game theory standpoint, like if everybody assumes this is the outcome that happened last week and it's definitely going to happen this week, if you do the opposite, sometimes you get paid off handsomely. And I thought to myself, like, okay, everybody just watched Kirk Cousins throw lollipops all over the field, pick sixes, look terrible. Maybe we can stack him up this week and kind of sneak it by people. But then when you consider Drake London is potentially going to be the most popular, maybe one of like the top 3 most popular wide receivers, it's like, does that really help you in any way? Because if you're playing him, you're almost certainly stacking him with London and Mooney. So then to me, it's like, do you even need Cousins? Like, are you even considering him? He is cheap, so that does at least provide some appeal. But I'm not going to lie, I'm a little bit worried about this spot for the Falcons on the road. 5.5 point dogs against the Vikings. So to me, I think it's more of like maybe you play Mooney as like a leverage off of London situation. I don't think I'm going to be getting into Kirk Cousins stacks this week.
Yeah, I thought Bijan would be a little bit more popular, but it's easy to look at the matchup and get scared. They've given up some big games recently to some running backs like Kyron. Gibbs got there, and he's kind of just a receiver for this team, and his usage recently has just been awesome inside the 10. So I think Bijan's a great play. I think he's not going to get steamed up as much because we're having all these other running backs that look great. So if you just want to play Bijan and stack up the Darnold side, I'm fine with that too. The options are cheap enough, though, in Atlanta. Like you mentioned, the passing options. I looked this up, but Minnesota plays the highest rate of 2 safeties in the NFL, 65% of the time. And Mooney actually is ahead of London against those in terms of yards per out run and air yards. I think it's a little bit of a boost with Mooney, and I like him at his price point too. So if you wanted to double stack Cousins with London and Mooney, or Bijan and Mooney, or even Bijan and London, I think you can get there. I did not mention Kyle Pitts because I cannot for the life of me spend any more money on this man.
And what's annoying about it is like, he's not really that cheap. He's 4,100, but it's like, he should be, for his role right now, he should be like 3,200, something like that, where it's like, at least tempt me to click the button. Now, just because we said that, he's going to go off for randomly 70 yards and a touchdown, but he literally played 39% of the snaps last week. So when they try to run the ball, which is what the offense has been trending towards recently in neutral situations with Bijan, he's not a blocker, so he's off the field. So the only way you can even like consider him like a dart is like you have to tell yourself a story where they fall behind, 2 touchdowns and they're just throwing. So in the largest field of stuff, if you want a guy that's going to be sub 3%, certainly that would be Kyle Pitts. And the smaller stuff I play, I will not be playing Kyle Pitts.
He's not even on my radar. I hate him.
That's fair.
I think I hate it because I have all his jerseys, but also I hate it because he's not Jamar Chase. I can't not think about that anymore.
Yeah. Well,
okay.
You live and you learn.
Yep. On the Vikings side, we like them because they're third in pass rate over expectation. Atlanta's allowing the highest completion rate in the NFL. And there's a lot of options here. I mean, Jefferson's an easy stack with Darnold. Addison's in play. Hawkinson's in play. I think Aaron Jones is a sneaky little tournament play. He's going to see some receiving work. We took his over in our props earlier. So where do you want to go on the Vikings side?
Yeah, I mean, I think with Darnold, like we talked about him as our favorite cash play. So he's going to be played, I think, pretty heavily. When we see that in cash and then like kind of translates to tournaments, usually the number one option kind of comes along for the ride. So I'm really interested to see where Jefferson's roster percentage settles when we get to Sunday and Saturday. Anything below 20%, it's like, oh my goodness, like we have to just, this is the week, right? I mean, the dude hasn't scored since, what did I say last show? Was it week 7? He hasn't scored since, so he's due. And I went back and looked and I was like, in my head, I was like, this guy is super cheap. But is he actually that cheap?
Buttlicker, our prices have never been lower.
The answer is yes. The last time he was this cheap was December 20th of 2021 against the Chicago Bears.
Hold on. Let me go there in my mind. I was about to move. That sounds so Southern of me. I was fixing to move to Arizona. Oh, my mom would love that.
Oh, that was great. I wasn't even a dad yet, Kyle. That's how long ago this was. 2021. So if ever there was a time to play Justin Jefferson, it is this week. Will he be, a contrarian, like sub 10% guy? No. Will he be 30%? I don't think so. So anywhere like in the 20 or lower percent range, I'm trying to aggressively play Justin Jefferson this week. Such a good spot against the Falcons. So I love him in this spot.
Yeah. I think it's just, there's so many easy clicks in this game. And I wish the total was higher, but maybe that's one of those things we just take advantage of and say it's a dome game and just believe that Kirk at least can be competent enough. We've seen the worst possible side. I mean, do you think the field is just kind of going off of vibes alone? Like Kirk sucks, he's done?
100%.
Okay, well then we use that against them in DFS, and therefore, my Vegas take, oh man, 5.5. Give me the Falcons plus 5.5.
Oh no. Everybody, you know what to do. Log in.
Oh, do it, please.
Vikings minus, no, I'm just kidding. I think this is one of those where like, sometimes in sides and totals, which again, we do not bet and we're not a betting show for that. But sometimes like you see stuff where it's like 85% of the tickets are on this side and 90% of the money and the line's not moving. Kind of tells you what side you should take. I haven't looked, but it feels like this is one of those games where it's like everybody thinks the Vikings are going to smoke them and they're just going to run away with it. So probably the right side, just from a be on the side of the books standpoint, is the Falcons. But I cannot in good faith put any money on a man that I just saw do what he did on an NFL field last week. So I would say for me, I would like the team total for the Vikings is where I would go with this bet.
And by the thing that he did, he took a fat dump.
Correct.
Nice. Coming off the bye. That's
my goodness.
That's really good stuff. Okay.
It was so bad.
I'm really excited to talk about this game. This might be my favorite game to talk about this week.
Same, dude. I like this game.
And only in DFS would we care so much about the Pirate Bowl between the Las Vegas Raiders and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. This game surprised me when I started to look at it in pace of play because there's a lot of things in this game. It's around 45.5, 46 in some places. At first, I'm like, okay, these teams play slow. Vegas is 25th in neutral pace. The Buccaneers are 29th. Like, okay, why do we care about this game? It's kind of just like what these teams are good at and what they're really bad at. The Raiders cannot run the ball at all. And so they quickly kind of end up abandoning that. I've looked over the last 6 weeks. The Raiders' pass rate is almost 80% in the second half, where you just get this crazy amount of volume. And on DraftKings, that's the stuff we care about. That's the full PPR, the 100-yard bonus. You get to chase that kind of stuff with Myers, Bowers, AOC. Is there anybody else in the Raiders that we're even going to talk about?
I did include in our doc here that I think Trey Tucker is like a really interesting, milli maker type play.
Why is he not cheaper?
Yeah, that's the tough part. He should be 3,200. 4,600 is it's insane for Trey Tucker. So he's going to project terribly. If running an optimizer, you will get 0 of him. But as part of AOC stacks or part of a bring back on Baker, what you're counting on with him is like a long catch or two and hoping one of those goes in the end zone. Obviously, it's super thin, but they did just put DJ Turner on IR, who was kind of running as their wide receiver 3. So Tucker's kind of an explosive guy. You hope he gets a big play, like I said. Very thin for small field stuff. Obviously, do not play him in cash, but in like the milli maker type stuff, I think he's viable this week.
Yeah, I just like that AOC is cheap enough. and you're going to get volume. So if you wanted to go AOC, is it just a skinny stack? Is that what you're doing? You're just skinny AOC?
So the problem is, when you look at these two players, they're both going to be, like, certainly Bowers top 3 at his position. Jacoby, I think, top 3 at his position. These two together might be the most popular, like, 3rd or 4th guy on the slate as far as roster percentage. So I was thinking, like, oh, you could just play one of them and get leverage. I don't think that's the case. So I'm fine playing them both together. Understand you're eating a lot of roster percentage, but the part of this that's so nice is, like, when AOC has a good game, it's almost definitely because one of or both Jacoby and Bowers are having a good game. So you know where the ball goes. The stacks are clean. It's very cheap. So I would say if you're doing that stack, which I probably will play one of at least, if you're doing it and you want to bring back on the other side, just consider the roster percentage. If you don't want to bring back, just make sure you're not playing it with, like, you know, Grendo and Kamara or Grendo and Saquon or one of the other popular plays. Like, you definitely have to get different if you're playing the stack. So that's my take. I think it's good. Just understand you're not getting unique by doing this.
Yeah, you're going to see a lot of correlation plays too, where, like, let's say people don't want to play AOC, but they're going to play Evans and Myers or Evans and Bowers together. And that's my biggest issue. Like, Bucky Irving's going to have some roster percentage, not nearly as much as we've seen last week, because you have these other cheap running backs that people are going to stuff in their lineup. So I think my take in this game is that AOC is just my favorite one that I want to get, you know, and play in lineups, because at 4,800, like, what do I need him to do? Like, I need this guy to hit, you know, 20 points in a tournament, and I am cooking.
That's what Bryce Young did last week.
And look at you. How has that changed your life?
Honestly, I was so alive, you know? I was depressed about the 2 tight end thing, but then I was like, okay, I got this Bryce Young lineup left. They're going to overtime. This could really go well. It did not go well, but it could have. And, you know, that's what keeps coming back every week.
Yeah. I was looking at some Bryce Young stuff for this week. He's never won on the road in his career, and he is abysmal. I mean, just so bad on the road, because the last 2 weeks have been at home. So I was like, man, we need to find some Bryce Young line that I want to take the over. Is it boosted? They are not boosted. The books are still smart, people.
Yeah.
They know what they're doing. All right. Any other takes in this game?
What are your thoughts on your boy, Cade Otton?
Buck Wild?
No, I think Bucky's a great play. Cade Otton, it's been a few weeks, man. And really, he's, you know, since Mike Evans returned, it has not been great. But it's a good matchup. And when you're thinking about, like, potential contrarian plays in this game, I think he might be the one. Because, like, can you even recommend Jalen McMillan or Sterling Shepard or any of those dudes?
I wanted to. I looked at the prices and I go, man, Jalen McMillan, this is a great spot. I love his price. I can't recommend him.
Yeah. So if you're looking for the guy that might be a little bit contrarian in this game, it is Cade Otton. The numbers have not been good, so we can't really say anything positive about that. It's more of a game theory play, and the matchup is there. So, yeah, I think he's interesting.
Yeah, Raiders over the last 6 weeks are dead last in scheduled adjusted fantasy points tight end. That's one thing. Also, on the year, our boy Cade Otton, 3rd in routes run, and number 1 in offensive snaps among tight ends, man.
He's out there.
Guys grinding.
He's out there.
Okay, here's a bigger question. Do you think he gets a off-season extension?
With Tampa?
Yeah.
I think he does.
So proud. I wonder if he'll, like, invite us to his, like, extension, like, signing, like, press conference.
Maybe we can get credentialed for that. We'll figure it out.
Like anybody can Jason give us credentials?
Yeah. Put us on a flight down there.
And, like, media coverage?
Yeah.
All right. Let's do it. Next game. Actually, you know what? What's your Vegas take?
I will take the over in this game, actually.
I think that's a good call. 45.5. The scary thing is if, let's say AOC fails, because it's totally possible he just duds and the game's gross. Like, there's a chance this game just hits the under and you see a bunch of rush attempts from White and Sean Tucker and Bucky. But yeah, I think the over is the right call. And the way that I'm going to play it is if it goes over. Next game is the game that Betz and I hate. And we hate these teams because they're supposed to be way more. It's Seattle Seahawks at the Arizona Cardinals. This game is supposed to be one that's supposed to be back and forth. We're here to tell you that Geno Smith is up there in pass attempts. He doesn't care. He doesn't throw touchdowns, man. Geno just literally wants to go out there and they're winning the division, and that's totally fine. But right now, the Cardinals are 2.5-point home favorites. The line's at 45. I just feel like this is a game that hits the under, and maybe there's a running back that's key in this game. It's James Conner or it's Ken Bone. And then maybe you figure out on the other side, it's, Trey McBride as a bring back, or, if you want to go there with JSN, but I don't love this game.
Yeah, it's tough. When you look at it, we talked about this game. These teams just played 2 weeks ago. Now, that game was in Seattle, in the rain a little bit. So maybe you could have forecasted that one being a little bit of a slog. But when you even zoom out and, in the last 4 or 5 games, not just that Seattle and Arizona game, both of these teams are kind of trending more run heavy. We talked about that on Tuesday with the Seahawks early in the year. They were number 1 in pass rate over expectation. Since week 8, they're 20th. So they have been more run heavy. They're also playing slower. And it's kind of led to their games just not having a ton of play volume, being lower scoring. And when we talk about the Cardinals, they will every now and then get into some games where they'll let Kyler Murray get back there and sling it when they have to, but that's not what they really want to do, right? So as long as the game stays close and it's, within one score, I think you will see a lot of James Conner. I think you'll see a lot of Ken Walker. I think the play clock is just going to be ticking. So I don't like this game. I think it goes under. And for me, it is definitely a spot where if the field is going to be on it, I would like to go the other direction. So I get the appeal of it because there's, high ceiling guys like Walker, Metcalf, JSN, in theory, Marv, McBride, but just the game environment itself, I think it's going to be low scoring. So I am not super into this one personally.
Yeah, I think McBride is going to be the most popular play from this game. I think you're going to see a good amount of James Conner. It's not going to get out of control. And that's usually where I like playing Conner, is if he's the, RB 6 or 7 in roster percentage. When in a given week, he can be a top 5 back and leapfrog those other guys. So I like Conner the most in this game. But I checked this out because I was like, man, my memory of DK Metcalf is him against the Cardinals hunting down Budda Baker.
Mm-hmm.
That iconic play. He has 10 games against them. Okay. A lot. That's a lot for a career. He's never hit 15 DK points.
So he's due.
Some would say he's due. Others would say this is just terrible. He's never had 60 receiving yards against them.
That's funny. I wonder why that is.
I don't know. And I kind of looked at what you can see it in the Pace of Play article, but how they play defense, because the Cardinals have improved as a defense compared to last year, where it was more shootouts back and forth. I think JSN is just a better fit overall against what the Cardinals do. A lot of 2-eye safety stuff, covered 3. So I think what I like is if you wanted to play Conner and then bring it back with JSN, I kind of like that. I see some Michael Wilson love. I just can't imagine playing him.
Is that because of the price?
Yeah, he's cheap. He's 4,100. And if you wanted to stack up Kyler, if you want to do Kyler, Wilson, and McBride, it works out pricing. It's just you need a touchdown. He's Quentin Johnston.
I kind of like the defenses in this game too. If the game does play under and it's kind of slow, I mean, we've seen we've seen Murray be great and terrible, in the same game and week to week. You really never know what you're going to get. So I don't mind playing, Ken Walker, Seahawks defense, or even James Conner, Cardinals defense, with how Seattle's played recently. So yeah, those two are in play. Divisional matchups, second time in the last couple of weeks. I don't know why the NFL does this, but it does kind of, I think, lend itself to a potentially low-scoring game. So overall, I think my stance is probably underweight this matchup.
Yeah, and I'll be taking the Cardinals -2.5.
Oh, how confident are you in that?
It's a 2-unit banger.
Okay, I'll take the Seahawks.
Yeah, it's not a bad call. Let's take a quick break. We'll be right back.
This episode is brought to you by Shopify. Forget the frustration of picking commerce platforms when you switch your business to Shopify, the global commerce platform that supercharges your selling wherever you sell. With Shopify, you'll harness the same intuitive features, trusted apps, and powerful analytics used by the world's leading brands. Sign up today for your $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/tech, all lowercase. That's shopify.com/tech.
This episode is brought to you by Etsy.
Oh.
Hear that?
Okay. Thank you.
Etsy knows these aren't the sounds of holiday gifting. Well, not the ones you're hoping for. You want squeals of delight. happy tears.
How did you?
And spontaneously written songs of joy.
I am so happy. Oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah.
Okay, the song needs a bit of work, but anyway, to get those reactions, make sure everyone on your list feels heard with handmade, handpicked, and designed gifts from small shops on Etsy. Gifts like personalized jewelry, custom artwork, cozy style items, vintage pieces, and home decor to celebrate all of your favorite people and their specific kind of special. For original gifts that say, I get you, Etsy has it.
We're going to preview one more game and then get to our slate breakers and our pick six. The last game is probably the one that you've been waiting on. It's the Bills at Los Angeles Rams. This game has gone up to 49 in some places. I don't know if you've seen it go higher, but it's a dome environment. The Bills have been on a absolute tear. I mean, it's really been fun to see the Bills, who always kind of fall short of like what people want them to be. And they've won 7 in a row. They've scored 30 plus points in 6 straight games. So Josh Allen's acting like an MVP. They're second in EPA per pass, third in EPA per rush. So you can really pick whichever side of the offense you want to say, hey, I like James Cook in this game, or I like Josh Allen. So where do you want to start here? I mean, there are some expensive pieces, right? If you go on the Rams side, Puka's expensive, Kyron's expensive, but where do you want to start?
Yeah, let's start on the Bills side, because that's just kind of what we talked about Josh Allen. Like, the offense has been so good. He's been so good, barring an injury or anything crazy, probably going to win the MVP. But in DFS, you haven't really needed like any of the Bills' weapons this year. There's been spots where James Cook pops up for a big game, but as far as like a Josh Allen stack, there's been weeks where Khalil Shakir has been very good for fantasy, but definitely not the guy that you like had to have, right? He's not going for 30 on a week in and week out basis. He's not exploding for huge games. He has one game above 20 DK points all year. There hasn't been a single pass catcher above 25 DK points in a single year, or in a single week rather. So it's not that it can't happen in any game that's played. Of course it could, but just historically this year, if you've played Josh Allen with one of his guys, it's been fine, but not GPP winning. Now you add in that Allen's 8K, you're asking a lot of the stack to get there, if you see what I'm saying. So, I think Shakir is a good play. I still question the ceiling just in general, but it's a good spot for him. He's kind of the first read, and he's been playing well in that role. But Kincaid comes back. You add in maybe some Keon Coleman this week we're still waiting on. Then you get the wide receiver rotation. So it's tough. I don't know who to play, quite frankly, other than Shakir, who will be probably in like the 10 to 12% range on DraftKings, which is fine. But outside of that, I don't know who to recommend.
Yeah, I think James Cook is the best game theory play on the Bills side. If you just want to play him and get out of this game, I'm totally fine with that. Or play Cook and correlate with on the other side, or stack up Stafford. I think Cook is just an awesome play at his price point. He's 7,400, and he has these games where he just kind of takes over, gets like 150 yards from scrimmage, gets in the end zone at least once. So I think he's an interesting play. He's not going to be popular at all. Like nobody's going to play James Cook in this game.
You can run on the Rams.
Yeah. And Shakir's, like you said, he's going to be probably the most popular play, but still not out of control. No one really in this game is going to be out of control. I mean, Puka's going to get roster percentage. Kupp will have some. Kyron will have some, and Shakir. But so I like this game because it's in a dome, and the roster percentage is kind of in other places on this slate. So if you wanted to go Shakir as like the starting point, like he's going to be the most popular, but you're not running into a ton of roster percentage elsewhere.
Yeah, for sure. That makes sense. Are you trotting out any Matthew Stafford double stacks in this game?
I'm kind of interested, man, because he's cheap. And
5,700 on DraftKings. Yeah, that's a pretty good tag.
It's tough because the Bills are a team that you can't have big plays against them. That's kind of like not what the Rams do best. I mean, they have these big plays with Demarcus Robinson, but really it's like Puka and Kupp, and just, I was writing it up as just like death by 1,000 paper cuts of just over and over and over again underneath. And I looked this up. I mean, Cooper Kupp, I think, is my favorite contrarian play. I mean, the Bills run 2-eye safety looks 56% of the time. It's fourth highest. And Kupp leads Puka in every single area, if you want to look at the entire season or just since Puka returned. So Kupp is is an interesting click for me. His 36% first read target share against 2 eye safeties is elite. So he's fine, and he's cheaper now. He's $7K. That in tournaments, I think he's going to be below Puka. So if you wanted to go Stafford and then Kupp and then bring it back with like Shakir or Cook, that's a good start.
Makes sense. I also think Kyren Williams is a guy that I'll be monitoring very closely this weekend to see where he comes in. I mean, 3.5 point underdog. It's not ideal, but it's not like Vegas is projecting this game to be a blowout. If the game stays close, just as you saw last week, Kyren can always be a leverage play off of his wide receiver teammates. Even though his touches are coming down, he's kind of touchdown dependent. Like he almost has to score to hit a ceiling, just how he plays. But 7,300 on DraftKings is a pretty good tag. I don't think he's going to get played at all. So if you want to start with Kyren in your lineup as far as like a contrarian tournament play, play a couple guys in the early window, see how you do. You could potentially swap off him to some other chalk if you need to, or if you need him as like the late game, contrarian hammer. I think Kyren makes a lot of sense. You can run on the Bills. They funnel everything underneath. It's a good matchup. So I think Kyren, if he's sub 5%, that's going to be a somewhat easy click for me in tournaments.
Yeah, it seems like both the running backs, we would agree, are really good tournament plays.
Yeah.
Okay. So if you just wanted to play a running back and you're saying like Allen's too expensive, so Kyren and Shakir, and you're fine with their roster percentage and you want to do that, that's totally fine. Or on the other side, you want to do Cook and Kupp or Cook and Nakua. You want to go there. But are you going to play Stafford?
I don't think so. I mean, he's cheap, but Puka and
ceiling?
Puka and Kupp, well, I mean, he'll have 300 yard in 3 games. They're rare, but they will happen. The Bills are just good, man. And even though defensive matchups can be a little overrated, the Bills defense, as far as the pass, is no joke. So I don't think so.
Matthew Stafford, I looked this up today, has 30 pick sixes in his career. The all-time leader is Brett Favre with 32. So he's pretty close.
How is Jameis not already there?
That's the reason I looked it up, because I was like, where's Jameis at? I know he's praying for us to not have them anymore. He has 14. He's tied with Joe Flacco for 5th among active players. So active guys, it's Stafford, Andy Dalton, Derek Carr, Kirk Cousins, of course, and then Flacco and Winston. The boys.
Love that.
I know. That stat's really fun, and then you realize like, oh man, these dudes. So what's your Vegas take?
At more than a field goal, I think I will take the Rams at home plus the points.
I think I will too. I mean, the Bills have been a juggernaut. They've been awesome recently. It wouldn't shock me if they won on the road, but I will be taking the Rams plus the points. Anything you want to say about Philadelphia onslaught stacks?
When we talked Tuesday, we had said if you wanted to just say the Eagles score, 35, and it kind of only goes through Brown and Saquon, you could do it. It's very expensive. But now we have Devonta Smith back at practice, full practice on Wednesday, back at practice today on Thursday. So I think he plays, which obviously just is one more, person in the offense that is going to get touches. So I don't think onslaughts are in play just because of the pricing this week. But I mean, Saquon, if he for some reason gets under rostered because of Kamara and kind of the way people are building, unbelievable spot, obviously, against Carolina. And then, AJ Brown, he's been a guy that I've keep trying to play because he does have the ceiling. The offense is good. They just aren't throwing. Like, I haven't seen where Hurts' attempts line is this week. I can't imagine he throws more.
I almost took the under in pick 6.
What is it? Do you know?
I need to look it up again. Hold on.
I was going to say, I can't imagine he throws more than 25 times in this game. Something like that. So even if he sees a 30% target share, right? Like, you kind of need him to rip off a big play, which obviously he could do. Just the pass volume is not there.
The passing yards, I wanted to take the under. It's already gone down, man.
What's his line?
His yards is at 209.
What's the attempts? Do you have that?
I don't have that in front of me right now.
Okay. So that's my take on AJ Brown. I think there's an outcome that he smashes. Just you're not getting pass volume in the offense, and this does not profile as a spot where that's going to happen.
Yeah, and Saquon's going to be the only guy in that game that carries roster percentage. I thought there would be more attempts at like Thielen and some of these other dudes. Like, I still think people at the end of the day are sniffing out the fact that like the Eagles are an awesome defense. They've been incredible recently. So I think I think it makes sense in a large field to not play Saquon and play some Eagles. But at the end of the day, I think it's a game that just feels so risky.
Yeah.
It's not really my style, man. I'm more of an AOC guy.
Slate Breaker of the Week.
Our sponsor this week, and I don't know, I mean, they're still contacting me, but like, it's whatever diaper company that Betz is using right now because he's in the throngs of diaper world. And the other day we were recording and he had to go through it, man. I don't know if you want to share this personal story. You don't have to go into all the details, but we were in the middle of recording Dynasty. His wife comes home and everything you could think of, the kids decided to do on the way home in the car.
It was an hour of fatherhood. Yeah, we record in the afternoons, on Tuesdays. Just finished the show. It's a great show with Jason. We're wrapping up. My wife took the kids to visit her parents for a couple days. She was like, "I'll be home right after your show." I was like, "That's great, no problem." I hear the garage door. I go out to help. She comes in. She looks just broken. I'm like, "Are you all right?" She's like, "No." The girls are in the back seat. They peed out of their diaper. This is the twins. The baby blew out in the car seat. It is chaos. The dog's going crazy. He's excited. The girls are like kind of crying because they got wet pants. They're hungry. They need a snack. It was absolute madness for a good 45 minutes. I get back on the computer after an hour of like helping diffuse the situation, get the laundry started, whatever. And I have like 9 missed calls from Mike, Kyle. I have messages from Papa Josh. Everyone's like, "Where is your file for this recording?" Everyone's freaking out. I'm like, "Guys, I am in the middle of war. You're okay? Give me a minute." So I apologize if that delayed anybody's listening experience. But between that and the 2 tight ends in cash, like I've had a week, Kyle, and I'm not sure I'll ever recover.
It didn't delay anyone except for Papa Josh trying to get out of work early. That's it. That's the
classic
only thing.
Josh. Dude hates work.
Josh is good at figuring out ways to not finish working.
That's a skill I think we all would love to have.
All right, Slate Breakers of the Week brought to you by diapers everywhere and blown out diapers. Just generic, just the generic, diapers. I'm going to go with the Minnesota wide receivers. I was going back and forth if it's Jefferson or it's Addison. I just like them both, man. I think they're in a really clean spot against Atlanta. 27th in scheduled adjusted fantasy points allowed to wide receivers. They've been terrible using man coverage, 3rd most fantasy points per dropback. But the real area is cover 3 and cover 6, where they basically take their best safeties, Bates and Simmons, and push them all the way back and say, let's not get beat deep. Instead, let's get beat underneath. You see a lot of running back receptions. But if you look at those 2 coverages, cover 3 and cover 6, I think Addison's kind of underrated. Like Jefferson's going to be great, but on the season, Jordan Addison actually has a higher fantasy points per route run than Jefferson against those looks. And I think both of those guys are in really, really good spots. So I don't mind if you want to double with Darnold, Jefferson, and Addison and just go that direction. I think it's fine. But I think both of them are elite plays this week.
I like it. I'm going to also go with a wide receiver. I'm going to go with Mike Evans. And, it's one of those things where it's just obvious, isn't it? I mean, no Chris Godwin. You talked about the targets per route run. Last week, he saw 12 targets, 8 for 118 and 1. Is there anything that's going to stop that from continuing? I don't think so. And now you get the Raiders in a game we both like where we could see some pass attempts. So I like this spot, especially against the Raiders, who are allowing the 3rd highest explosive play rate over the last month. So give me Mike Evans as a slate breaker who, is not going to be like completely unowned, but relative to how often I think he hits the ceiling, I think he is going to be under rostered on this slate.
It's time for Borg versus Betz, presented by DraftKings.
No sportsbook, no problem. You can play DraftKings Pick 6 with us. Last week, the boys win a combined 3-0 on Black Friday. No big deal. We're just rolling through. That was a great game. Early on, it was like Kelsey over, Jacoby over. And then, of course, AOC comes through for us.
That was a sweat in the final 2 minutes when they had to score to tie it up or go ahead. I can't remember what the score actually was. But, yeah, we were sweating some attempts there from AOC. Fortunate to get that one. So, yeah, if you played that 3 picks slip, hopefully you made some good money.
All right, first one I'm going to give out is Geno Smith less than 1.5 passing touchdowns. You ask yourself, hey, Can he do this? Can he go over? Well, you know what? He's been under in 10 of 12 starts, Betz. That's pitiful. That's not the Geno Smith that I love. They've been terrible inside the red zone, especially throwing. And recently, over the last 6 weeks, they have the 6th highest rush rate inside the 10-yard line. I think this game duds. And I think at the end of the day in the red zone, it will be some Charbonnet and some Ken Bone, the bone zone.
Yep. And let's just keep going with that because we took in props this week on the site. We took under 34.5 pass attempts for Geno on pick 6. It is 33.5. I still think that's good. He's been under this line in 5 of the last 6 games, and that correlates directly with how they have changed the offense. We talked about them playing slower. They're running more. Their pass rate is down. So give me the under 33.5 pass attempts for Geno. And with the less volume, he'll probably have less chances to throw touchdowns.
And the thing is, they've won 3 straight. So they're winning this way, like by slowing the games down, and their defenses looked a lot better. So it's one of those things where I know what I want them to be, but they just haven't been. Now in the same game, I'll be taking Kyler Murray less than 30.5 pass attempts. He's averaging just 24.5 pass attempts per game at home, and he's been under this line in 5 of his 6 home games. If they get the lead early, they're one of those teams that loves to milk the clock. You'll see a lot of James Conner in this game. So yeah, I think we're both projecting this game to hit the under. Murray less than 30.5 pass attempts.
Okay, last one here. I'm going to take Chuba Hubbard less than 60.5 rushing yards. Kind of stinks because Chuba's been very good. He's been great with his opportunities this year. The problem is they are on the road as a 12.5 point underdog against an Eagles defense that over the last 6 weeks is number 1 in EPA per rush. And on top of that, with the game script concerns, the matchup concerns, we saw Jonathan Brooks up his snaps from 5 total snaps his first game of his career. Last week it was 21% of the snaps, stole 6 carries. So if that gets up to 30% of the snaps and 8 carries or something like that, it's getting thinner for Chuba. So give me the less than 60.5 rushing yards for Chuba Hubbard.
And I know you guys are all waiting. You're like, where's that kicker prop?
Guys, get out of here.
Where are the turtles? Where are they?
Where are the kicker props?
People want them, Kyle. They need them. Last week, it was like Saturday. Kyle was trying to enjoy his Saturday. I texted him. I was like, the people need the kicker props, Kyle. Where are they? And he ghosted me. So I tried for everybody, and Kyle decided to spend time with his kids. So you can blame Kyle for that.
You will get a kicker prop soon, but there are actually currently none as of this recording in pick 6. So I literally cannot give you one, but I promise it will give you more. So just to recap, Geno less than 1.5 passing touchdowns, Geno under 33.5 pass attempts, Kyler Murray less than 30.5 pass attempts, and Chuba Hubbard under 60.5 rushing yards. That was Borg versus Betz, presented by DraftKings Pick 6. Download the new DraftKings Pick 6 app now and use the code BALLERS.
Ballers.
That's code BALLERS for new customers to play $5 and get $50 in Pick 6 credits. Bets. Let's have a good weekend.
Let's have a good weekend. You know what's terrifying, Kyle? I think we're both into AOC on this slate. So how could this possibly go wrong for anybody? AOC, little 2 tight end lineup. We're cooking with gas. Good luck, everybody out there this week. Hopefully you win some cold hard cash, and we will see you next week. Good luck.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Must be 18 and over. Age and eligibility restrictions vary by jurisdiction. Void where prohibited. 1 per new customer. Non-withdrawable Pick 6 credits expire in 6 months. Limited time offer. See terms at pick6.draftkings.com/promos.